Awesome by Isaac Uncooked, and it's titled Porn and Autogynephilia. So that gives you an idea of what we're expecting. TBH, here's what I'm going in expecting. I'm expecting to hear about how autogynephilia is caused by porn consumption, caused by sissy hypno, caused by like feminizing pornography, and that causes trans people. Like that makes people trans is basically what I'm expecting to see. I also expect to see a lot of coping about how being trans is not real. It's all just the porn. But like, think about it like this. There's a lot of people who are into things that are being expressed from different facets of their life. For example, there are people who feel that they don't have much control in their everyday life, that really like being dominant in a bedroom. There are people that really like being submissive in a bedroom because they're dominant in their everyday life. So, like, there's underlying emotions that can cause porn consumption, which there's actually a really great paper that I read about this. It was written by a trans woman, I believe, and I will try and pull it up and do some digging on that as well. Okay, we're going to watch now, though. So, let's get into it. Good luck.
If you're seeking sexual release through pornography and you go through the whole cycle and you get a prolactin release, do you bond with yourself?
So this is very interesting. Hi, everyone. I'm once again sorry for my appearance and lack of lighting. So in this, we're talking about autogynephilia and pornography, and the link between them. We know there's a link. I've talked to many autogynephiles, the ones who actually admit that they're autogynephiles, and all the time, before they transitioned, they're addicted to porn. They're always watching porn, they're looking at porn all the time. Even after they transition, I've seen them literally spend all day on porn. They just won't jack off to it anymore. They'll just look at it. I literally know autogynephiles who will just look at porn, hentai, like anime pictures, little cartoon drawings, all day. It's all they'll do all day. And they'll save it on their computer, I guess. I don't know why they're weird. They collect it. And it's very interesting. But they're clearly addicted to it. They crave it. They need it. And so here's what I think is going on. So I saw a clip of actually Jordan Peterson. I don't normally watch him, but he asked the question because he was talking to this guy who is, I guess, very well researched into chemistry in terms of sex, and this guy was talking about how there's a prolactin release when you orgasm. This prolactin release causes pair bonding. So if you're having sex with someone and you orgasm, the idea is you pair bond with them, and then you have this fondness towards them, and that can benefit you evolutionarily in terms of raising a family, which makes sense. That only makes sense. That there would be some mechanism like that only makes sense. And so the question is, when you're jacking off to pornography, like these autogynephiles often do before they transition, probably almost every day, probably multiple times a day, it seems. The question is, are you pair bonding with yourself? I actually think it's two things. So this is the question Jordan Peterson asked. Are you pair bonding with yourself? Great question. Actually, I think that's a fantastic question. I think it's different, though. I have a little more nuance on this, because I've seen their obsession with porn, and it goes far beyond anything even that I can even understand as a guy. I can't get it. They're so into it. They're so into it, it's almost like they're in love with it. Right? Just like they're so into themselves and their identity. And they're in love with themselves as a woman. Right? So here's what...
It's because they're, that's the only way they're able to express their femininity is through, sexuality and through pornography and through getting to be authentic sexually. That's the only time that they are able to really authentically, feel themselves. And I have noticed this as well, that there are a lot of trans women who spent a lot of time consuming porn, and in particular consuming, Please 1 second. I really hate that sound. Hey! Please! Stop doing that! Thank you. Sorry. You're just being so noisy. You're really eating your own body. I hate it. Sorry. There's a lot of trans women who did spend a lot of time consuming pornography and like sissy hypno, forced feminization. But hey! But we'll just listen to see what he says.
Happens. This is what I think is what happens. This is my hypothesis. It's just a hypothesis. It'll be hundreds of years before we can literally scan the chemicals in people's brains and, do that.
For hundreds of years, we literally can scan people's brains today. So, come on, Isaac. Come on.
In a way that we could actually prove these things. But my hypothesis is you have an autogynephile who hasn't yet transitioned, and he's looking at porn all the time, and he's jacking off to this porn. Let's say it's lesbian porn. And he's looking at this porn and he's having this prolactin release after orgasm, and there's only two things there. There's the pornography and there's him, right? And so he's going to pair bond. He's going to pair bond with himself, but there's an issue with that, okay? And so now we're going to get into something called ETLE and ETLI. So ETLE is erotic target location error. This is where someone's attracted to something that's not correct. That's why they call it an error. It's abnormal. They could be attracted to, say, their computer, right? For whatever reason. So they need it, or else you maybe have seen these videos on TLC or something. People attracted to cars, people attracted to a fence, like there are people attracted to weird things because they've pair bonded with this thing effectively. And it's an ETLE, erotic target location error. But recently someone coined the term ETLI, which is erotic target location inversion, which is where the sexuality is inverted. This is what autogynephiles are. So they are straight men, but then they have this ETLI. And why does this ETLI occur? This is what we didn't realize until now. I think this is why. This is my hypothesis. So they pair bond with themselves when they're watching this porn. They pair bond with themselves, but they're not attracted to themselves because they're a straight guy. So they're not attracted to a straight guy. They're going to be attracted to a straight woman. So they must see themselves as a straight woman. But they're not a straight woman, so they transition, okay? So this is where their ETLI comes from, this pair bonding. But also, I think they're pair bonding with the pornography as well, and maybe even their computer in general. It might be a multi-structured family, multi-parental family here. More than two parents, effectively in the mind is what I'm saying. Like the mind might be thinking, okay, man, I am having so much sex. I am having so much sex with my computer, with my pornography, with my hentai, my anime girls. I am in love with my computer. I am in love with my anime. I'm in love with my porn. And so this is why they're always using those anime pictures. They're literally in love.
Let me finish the hypothesis.
It's like their partner. It's like their partner. And as we know, these people are very online. They're very, very online, right? And it would only make sense. I mean, if your partner is your computer, and we all use our phones and everything too much anyway, but imagine you were in love with your phone, literally. Then you're going to use it even more, right? I'm not even kidding about this. I genuinely think they're pair bonding with their computer, their pornography, and themselves. So they're very online.
I think that a lot of queer people find themselves very online due to a few different reasons. Most of the transgender community is heavily neurodivergent, whether that be autism, ADHD, other neurodivergencies. It's very common within the trans community to be neurodivergent. Something else that comes with neurodivergence is social issues. We really struggle in person. Real life IRL bonding can be very difficult, but it's easier with people on the internet. It's easier with people in group chats. It's easier with people that you aren't having to put up this mask and pretend to be somebody. And for a lot of my fellow trans individuals, we've had to build masculine masks, especially for trans femmes. We've had to build masculine masks our whole life to be manly. And the only time where we were allowed to not be manly was, at least pre-transition, was sexually. The only time I could feel feminine was if I was consuming things that could make me feel feminine, but not by my choice, because I can't be feminine. That's not allowed for me. That's wrong. And similar to what Isaac said, there was this idea of like an inverted sexuality. Like, this is wrong for you to think this. This is the opposite of what you should believe. But in reality, like, there is no correct sexuality. There is no correct way of existing. And when I was growing up, I was taught that there was a correct way to be a man, and there was a correct way to have a sexuality. Hey, Vesti. And I was not able to live up to the standards of being a man, and it found itself sexually. So I think that what Isaac is saying does have some truth, and that like these are real things that are happening. I think the way that he's drawing the lines is incorrect, and I don't think that it's a pair bonding between cis men and their computers and their idea as women that is causing them to be trans. I think it's them being trans that is leading them to pornography, that is forced feminization, that is taking the control out of their hands and letting them be feminine, and then them just getting addicted to it because it's the only thing that makes them feel good inside. Because me personally, I was in that trap for a lot of years, where I would just consume that kind of content. I would look at a lot of trans people on the internet. I would read like trans forums, but that wasn't me. I couldn't do that. I could never. And here we are, a few years later. Here we are. And I don't think it was the porn that caused me to be here. I think it was the being here that caused me to find the porn. Anyways, I'm gonna let Isaac keep talking, but I don't think the hypothesis is correct, and that being trans is just like an inverted sexuality. Although technically Isaac's just talking about AGP, which AGP is like testosteronated people that want to be feminine and then they can't. Well, they struggle with it, and then it's mental repression. I'm gonna make a whole video about it later because it's gonna require me to talk way more than I have time for in this reaction video. But I need to do it so that when I make these reaction videos, I can just point back to it. Okay, bye.
Due to the love of their computer, they're constantly looking at porn, as I have seen. I mean, literally just constantly. They're constantly thinking about this. And they have this pair bond with themselves, which causes this sexuality inversion, this ETLI, which causes, this autogynephilia. And so there you go. I mean, that makes Blanchard's typology make a lot more sense to me, at least the autogynephilia part, which again, I believe them all to be autogynephiles. Even
the other thing is, even though I am kind of, as you may be able to tell, a supporter of the term AGP, I think that the way that Blanchard used it initially in the typology, like AGP and HSTS, is a harmful reduction of the way that queer people present. I think the idea of autogynephilia is useful and like a diagnostic criteria for determining who is having like trans feelings. Because AGP is just like the expression of trans feelings. And even Ray Blanchard recommends social and medical transition as the cure to autogynephilia. So even if these cis men are developing autogynephilia, the cure is to transition, which a lot of these anti-trans people and a lot of these detrans creators seem to leave out, is that like Ray Blanchard tells people to transition if you have AGP. It's not like, oh, you have AGP, you're screwed, you're just a demonized human being for the rest of your life. It's, oh, you have AGP, let's get you on track for the medical side of things, really is what he recommends. He talks less about the social side of things, he talks more about the medical side of things, but that is the cure, that is the answer, that is the solution to AGP. So they're going to keep talking about it as if it's this demonized, awful thing, but in reality, AGP just means you should transition. And that's what Ray Blanchard, the creator of it, says. So, yeah.
Make a lot more sense to me, at least the autogynephilia part, which again, I believe them all to be autogynephiles. Even the homosexual transsexuals, the gay men who transition to a woman, their sexuality is often still inverted from what I'm seeing, because they're attracted to straight men. They want straight men who want to see them as a woman. And so literally it's about the fact that they're being seen as a woman often by a straight man. So honestly, it really is just all autogynephilia. And so, yeah, I would ask that people stop separating homosexual trisexuals like Blair White and Dylan Mulvaney.
I agree with Isaac. I would like to ask that everybody stop using these two different typologies, because in reality, it's just the trans thoughts. It's just trans thoughts.
And autogynephiles, I would ask that you stop separating because they're really not any different. And
One and the same.
you know, I bring up Blair
Transition.
White a lot because he's very famous and
Take
popular.
your titty pills.
And he's popular because he says, well, yeah, I'm a tranny, but all these trannies are crazy. I'm a good tranny. He's just as crazy. He just doesn't want to admit it, and he just got popular because he happened to have a decent opinion, which, by the way, is an opinion he gained, I think, intentionally so he could become popular. And I think a lot of people realize that. He just wants to be accepted. He'll do anything. He'll say anything. And he will throw as many trannies under the bus as he needs to prove that he is the truest tranny. But they're all the same amount of trans. They're all exactly the same type of person. They're all trying to do exactly the same things.
I don't think that's an accurate statement either. I don't think all trans people are trying to do the same thing. I do think that there are a lot of trans creators who will appeal to more bigoted bases, and they do that as a bid to like chase the money and maintain popularity in a way that helps them stand out. And it's sad, but it is a thing that happens.
And they're just trying to use different words and ways of doing it, and they're all doing it for effectively different, I mean, the same desires effectively, but in different frames of mind in terms of their sexualities. Yeah, so that's what I'll say about that. Hopefully, you know, I'm just trying to shed light on all this, so I think about these things a lot, and I do this because, well, hopefully people will see it in themselves. I feel like the more information that we talk about this stuff, the clearer we are, the more people who are going to be like, okay, yeah, actually, that kind of describes me pretty damn well. You know, there's going to be an autogynephile who watches this who's like, yeah, you know, that's me. And they're going to be like, okay, so I'm just a dude who has this inverted sexuality due to this pair bonding. I don't really want to have to be this way. And now that I know that that's the reason, is there a way I can maybe pair bond with someone else and fix this? Is there a way I can kill the pair bond? I mean, you know, there'll effectively be a mourning period. Detransitioning is not easy. You if you have this inverted sexuality, I imagine there's probably a mourning period, a grieving period. But either way, you're losing part of your identity because you've made this part of your identity. And so there will be an ego death of sorts.
And here, Isaac is kind of actually speaking about themselves. Isaac is a detrans creator. They went through a medical transition, and now they're detransitioning. So they're speaking to their own experiences when they say that, like, there probably is, like, a mourning period. Isaac is probably mourning the fact that they're unable to be more feminine and, like, on estrogen. And the reason that they detransitioned, from my knowledge, was, it sounds like, medical and mental health. They have an immunodisorder, I'm not sure which one, that was causing them a lot of pain. The estrogen was making it worse. They are having like mental health issues. And now it seems like they're kind of recommending a sort of like, not necessarily conversion therapy, but recommending you find ways to ignore the feelings, which, as many of us know, isn't that easy. We've been trying to ignore the feelings our whole lives. Which Isaac knows as well, because Isaac transed for years. So, yeah.
There will be a grieving period either way. So you're going to effectively feel like you lost someone, which is very sad. And, yeah, psyche is a weird thing, you know? It's a weird thing.
Also, for me personally, the thing about this is that, like, this is assuming that you did not like interact with anybody before you transitioned. But for me personally, I've had a girlfriend since I was a toddler. It was different girlfriends of the whole time, but like I was constantly finding people to pair bond with and find these like relationships that I could ignore me and find other people, and explore other people and live through other people. And it didn't work. Like, it wasn't the solution. That was not the answer. Finding other people to try and make myself happier was not the answer. I have to find myself, and myself likes the estrogen. Myself wants to be more feminine. Myself does not want to be a man. And that's what AGP is. You just don't want to be a man. And your brain is expressing that sexually.
Especially when we're talking about personalities and identities that we kill off and create, which is something we are able to do. We know this. Often intentionally, but sometimes unintentionally, these things come about. And yeah, it's pretty weird, and it's difficult to talk about. So yeah, once again, thanks for listening. Hopefully this is useful to someone, because I know that the more we talk about these things in a way that makes sense, the more people who are going to be like, okay, I'm not actually trans, that's not a real thing, I just have this, whatever, pair bonding desire to be seen in society as a straight woman rather than a gay man, all these things I talked about in the past. Yeah, so thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching. I hope that this was useful to somebody. And one thing I do want to make clear is that I'm not dismissing that there are detrans people. I'm not dismissing that people will transition and regret their decision and decide to detransition. But the amount of people that detransition is roughly 1 to 5% of the people that transition, which is already just 1 to 5% of the general population. So we're talking about 0.01 to 0.25% of the general population that's going through this specific detrans route. So realistically, statistically speaking, if you are having thoughts like this, if you are having feelings like this, if you align with the idea of autogynephilia, if you align with the idea of like this typology, if you align with any of the ideas that Isaac is saying, statistically speaking, you are probably trans rather than detrans. So for you to potentially deny yourself even getting to explore a transition is dissatisfactory for you. And I'm not saying that if you have to trans, I'm not saying you have to detrans. I'm saying that your life is a journey, and a medical transition could be part of it, and a medical detransition could also be part of it, but you don't have to worry about that now. You can make the decision day after day. Try it. Try estrogen. If you like it and you like the effects it's doing to you, and you're not focusing on everybody else around you, then that's what matters, right? If you enjoy the effects of a medication regime, if you enjoy that, you deserve to at least like experience it without somebody trying to talk you out of it before you even tried it. And maybe you do get on this medical regime and you realize that this isn't for you. At least you have done the self-exploration. You have gotten to deepen your identity to an extent. You know what you are more and you know what you aren't more. And you're able to find yourself better in life. And I just want to encourage everybody to take their own journeys, you know? And don't listen to people who this was not the right journey for and assume that that's the only journey. That's what I got. Okay, I love you. Goodbye. Thanks for tuning in.